BleemSync 1.2 has finally come out, and with it has come a ton of new features, like a game manager, folder support, and even Wi-Fi. And I'm going to show you guys how to get it all set up. This is Steve from Restalgia, and let's get started. Alright guys, so as I mentioned, BleemSync 1.2 has finally been released, and what we're going to do is we're just going to take a look at some of the change logs. There's going to be a ton of features that are going to be released or that have been released, and we're just going to go through them just so you guys know what they are before we get everything up and running. So the big major updates, aside from all the small fixes, is going to be folder support. So the long-awaited folder support has finally been implemented. Folders can be created and managed solely using the app on the console. So it's all done right on the PlayStation Classic. The app is used both as a folder launcher as well as a manager and has the ability to add both stock and external games to a folder. Future updates will include the ability to generate launchers for each folder as well as add launchers to folders. So what that means is we don't have folders that are going to be built into the carousel yet. That is coming in the future. Right now we're going to have a dedicated section where you'll click on it and then you'll be able to access whatever folders you want right from in that section. Next, this is a really big one. We've got network support that is now up and running. So this update also brings networking support for a limited number of Ethernet and Wi-Fi adapters, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. With networking, you'll be able to update RetroArch cores and assets. You're going to be able to get things like your thumbnails. You can go ahead and do it right from the console now. You can actually play games online, so things like Half-Life, if you guys got that loaded up, we can now do multiplayer. So that's a really, really big update. We're really excited to see that. You will also be able to play certain multiplayer games with friends via the internet, as I just mentioned. Networking is disabled by default and must be enabled via the settings menu or config. So I'll show you guys how to do that, and I will also show you guys a quick way to get your Wi-Fi network up and running the easiest way possible. And it says for more information on setting up the network, you can go to the Mod My Classic website. So there was there, and also on their Discord. You can hop onto their Discord and they will help you out that way as well. So next we've got the game manager, and the game manager is a nice addition to the folder manager. So it says in addition to the folder manager, a console game manager app has also been included with this update. This game manager gives you the ability to edit game information and even remove games from the console itself without connecting to a PC. So if there's a game on there, you played it, you wanted to try it, you threw it on there, you played it, you didn't like it, you can just get rid of it, you can trash it right from the console. So that's a nice feature to have. And of course, there's some fixes that have been done. It says the reported issues with the transfer tool and playlist generator have been fixed. Certain bundle game entries have been removed from the PCSX game database. Some incorrect entries have also been fixed. The stock emulator bug with launching multi-disc games has been fixed as well. So a bunch of work's been put into that. Fantastic. Kudos to the developers. You guys are rocking on this. And then of course we've got our RetroArch update, so both RetroArch and the bundled PCSX core have been updated to the latest version, which is always nice. It's always nice to be running on the most up-to-date software, so that's really good. Now I'm going to be leaving some links in the description down below, and I'm just going to pop on screen the Wi-Fi adapter that I'm currently using. It's a TP-Link model, I think WN725 or something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I will leave a picture of it on screen right now. And I'm also going to leave links in the description down below. I tried 3 different adapters. This is the only one that worked. I know that they do have a list of supported adapters somewhere on their website, but this is the one that I'm going to recommend because I've personally used it. I've got it popped in. It gave me no trouble at all. I threw it in, I loaded up my Wi-Fi credentials, and it just started and worked right away. So definitely, if you guys are interested in picking this up, you're going to need to go into the description down below and click on the link and make that purchase from Amazon. Additionally, you are also going to need an OTG adapter that can have multiple USBs plugged into it. Again, I will put the one that I'm currently using on the screen right now, and I will leave a link to it in the description down below. Again, I'm using it, I've tested it, it works. You guys should have no problem getting that one as well. So the next thing that we want to do here is there is a new kernel, an updated kernel that we're going to want to install on our PlayStation Classic. Now, you don't have to do this step, but there are a bunch of people who are having problems with the rumble feature no longer working on their controllers, and this updated kernel will fix that problem, as well as it also adds a little bit more support for certain Wi-Fi dongles. So If you guys want to do the kernel upgrade, I'm going to show you guys how to do it all in one shot. But if you don't want to do it, you don't have to. But if you do run into some of those problems, it is highly recommended. Another thing that I want to make note, the guys over at ModMyClassic, I'll leave a link to the Discord below. You want to join that Discord. There's a ton of awesome resources in there. The development team is there to help you if you guys have any problems, but the team's actually looking for some sort of a graphic designer, somebody who can help them with some of their aesthetic appeal in terms of the boot menu screen or folders or little icons or anything like that. So if you've got a little bit of graphic design and you want to donate some time, just reach out to the guys over in the Discord. I'm sure they would appreciate it. So we're going to go ahead and close our notepad because we don't need that anymore. And as always, because I'm using the release candidates, I get all my files in advance. I can't show you guys where to download it, but as always, check the description down below. You will get your links. You will be able to find everything just fine. So as I mentioned, the first thing that we're going to want to do is we are going to want to update the kernel. Now again, you don't have to do this. I'm going to do the updated kernel as a separate step. And I just find that that's going to be a little bit easier because you are going to need a FAT32 formatted USB stick, as well as a base version of your BleemSync 1.2 or 1.1. It doesn't matter as long as you are running on either 1.1 or 1.2. So as you can see here, I do have the updated kernel. It's just sitting on my desktop. What I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to open up my USB drive, which is right over here. And as you can see, it is labeled Sony. And if I right click on it, and I go into the properties, you're going to see that it is, well, I clicked on the wrong folder there. Sorry. If I right click on it and I go into the properties of the USB stick, you're going to see that it is currently FAT32. This is important. If you're updating the kernel, you need it to be formatted in FAT32 or ext4 if you're using that format, but FAT32 is what most people are using. And that's because when we're doing this kernel update, it's got to go in through USB port 2 for the player 2 port. As well as that, it's going to override the existing kernel, which opens up the additional formatting support. So we are going to need 100% FAT32, and we're needing our USB to be labeled Sony. As you can see here, this is just a stock build for BleemSync 1.1. I have not actually done the BleemSync 1.2 load up onto this. This is just an old drive. This is one that I know is functioning with the power requirements from the front of the PlayStation Classic. All that we need to do is just open up our BleemSync folder, and as you can see, we've got that update folder. What we're going to do is open up the update folder, and we're going to just drag that new kernel into there, and that's it. The other thing that I want to mention is you just want to make sure that your backup folders has your recovery files in there. Otherwise, it'll create new recovery files. We don't want that. So if you are using a new USB, make sure that you're transferring all this stuff from your existing build from the working USB onto this. So we're going to go ahead and go back. Now that we've got our update folder filled up with our new kernel, all we have to do is pop this into the PlayStation Classic. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you guys on screen really quickly here what it looks like. So as you can see, we've got the BleemSync notice saying that we are installing a new kernel, don't power it down, and it counts down from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then the console just shuts off. So that's all that we needed to do. Once it shuts off, we're good to go. The new kernel's up and running, and we're good to go that way. Now, I do want to mention as well, you're going to need to make sure that your USB power is actually plugged into a power adapter, and it can't be plugged into your USB port on a computer or something like that. The updated kernel is what allowed us to connect into those other sources. So in order for this to properly install, you're going to need your USB power connected into a power adapter. Alright guys, so now that we've got that kernel up and running, we've got it running the latest version. Hopefully that solves the issues with the rumble that some people were having, and hopefully that's going to help with the Wi-Fi configuration as well. What we need to do is we need to make sure that our main build is plugged into our computer, which mine is. I'm going to go ahead and pull that up right now. And here it is. So this is going to be my main build that I use. This is the one that has all of my other games built into it. So this is the one that we're going to use to demo this for you. I've gone ahead and I've already extracted my 1.2 public beta release candidate folder. What we're going to do is we're going to open that up as well. So as you guys can see, we've got the BleemSync folder and our payloads folder. There's not a whole lot going on. It doesn't look like much is in there, but if you double click on BleemSync right away, you're going to see there's a new folder called Network. That is key. So we need to go back, and what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and highlight everything, click and drag it over to our USB. It'll take maybe a minute or two to transfer over. I'm just going to go ahead and fast forward. Alright, so when it asks you if you want to replace the files in the destination with the same name, in this case you are going to replace the files in the destination. If you are running Mac, you don't want to replace them. What you want to select is merge. So again, Mac users merge, Windows users replace. So I'm going to go ahead and hit replace and let this finish up. Alright guys, so files have been completely transferred over. We are good. I can go ahead and close this public beta release file folder. We don't need it anymore. And technically what we can do is we can go ahead and pop this into our PlayStation Classic, but there are a couple things that we want to do before we go ahead and do that. And the reason that we want to do this is because now we want to get our Wi-Fi credentials all configured before we get it plugged in so it works right out the gate. And we're also going to want to do something in terms of our folders. So as I previously mentioned, we now have folder support, and what comes with folder support is custom folder icons. So we may as well load up some custom folder icons before we get this thing loaded up so we have something to choose from. So what we're going to go ahead and do first is we're going to go ahead and load the Wi-Fi information. So I'm going to show you guys the easiest and fastest way to do it. So on the root of your USB drive, we need to double click on BleemSync. Then we need to double click on ETC. Then we're going to double click on BleemSync again. And then we've got a CFG folder. So we need to double click on the CFG folder. And as you can see in here, we've got a bunch of config files. We've got modules underscore to load. We've got boot sequence. We've got a ton of these things in here. What we want to do is we're going to want to open up one of these configuration files. It doesn't matter which one, but it has to be a .cfg file. And we're going to need to open that up within Notepad++. So as you can see, it's got a ton of stuff in here, and that's totally fine. We don't want to change anything in here, but what we're going to do is we're going to go to File and we're going to Save As. And the reason we're going to do that is because we want to create a new config file. So the easiest way to do that is we're going to go ahead and click Save File Type. We're going to scroll all the way up to the top and we're going to select All Types. Then what we're going to do is we're going to change the file name, and the file name needs to be ssid.cfg. So I'm going to put that on screen for you guys so you can see it in case it's too small for you, but ssid.cfg. And you're also going to want to again make sure that that save file type is all types. By putting in that .cfg, it's going to save it as a config file. That's very important. So after you do that, you can go ahead and hit save. And just to verify that that's what's happened, if you come over to your folder again, you can see our new working file is right here, ssid.cfg. So that's perfect. We're going to go ahead and minimize that. Now what we need to do is we're going to go ahead and select everything. So you can either hop on over to the edit section and click select all, or if you just write in here, you can hit Control A. It'll select everything, and then we want to delete it. So we want nothing inside of this ssid.config file. And then it's really simple. So you have two lines. Your first line is going to be your network name. And in this case, you don't actually write network name, you just write in the network name. And then in line 2, you're going to do the same thing just with your password. So again, this is going to be case sensitive, so you're just going to need to make sure that you put it in properly. But you're just going to put in here your network password. And that's it. Then you hit save. And then you close it up. That is your configuration file. Once you boot up BleemSync the next time, it'll look for that, it'll pre-configure it, and that actual file will disappear from the folder that we just saved it in, because now everything's pre-configured. If you ever need to change your Wi-Fi password or network or whatever it happens to be, you just follow the same step. You go ahead and you create a new ssid.config file, put in the new network name, put in the new password, save it, and you're off and you're ready to go. Now we can go ahead and close this, and then we can exit out of Notepad++. Alright, so now that we've got our ssid.config completely configured, ready to go, our Wi-Fi will work right out of the gate. All we've got to do is load it up. Next, what we're going to go ahead and do, as I mentioned, we've got folder support now, so we're going to go ahead and load up some folders, some folder icons, sorry. We're going to hop over to the root of the USB drive. Then we're just going to double click on BleemSync. Then we're going to go into ETC. Then we're going to go into BleemSync again. Then we are going to go into SUP. Then we're going to go into Launchers. And then we're going to go into Folder Launcher. And as you can see here, there is a folder called Images. If we double click on the images folder, we've got just one folder, and it's just a plain text image. It just literally says new folder. And I don't want to say that it's boring, but it is. So we want to go ahead and add some of our own custom folders in there. I've gone ahead and downloaded, I think 5 or 6 of them. I'm just going to go ahead and throw them in here. And as you can see, I've got like a Crash Bandicoot, I've got a PS1, Rayman, I've got a Ryu one. I've got just a bunch of different options for us, so that way we can kind of play around with it. These are really easy to find. Just literally go onto Google and search Crash Bandicoot folder icon, or PlayStation folder icon, or whatever it happens to be, and you'll find it. So if there's something specific you want, people have already made it, just go ahead and take a peek on the Google. So now we have everything that we need for our BleemSync build that needs to be done on the computer completed. What's next is to pop our USB drive and our wireless adapter into our multi-USB port OTG adapter, pop that into the back of the PlayStation Classic, and we're going to go ahead and boot it on. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over right now. Alright, so we've got our BleemSync screen loaded up, and the first thing that we're going to notice is that the custom payload is going to be installed. The custom payload needed to be loaded up in there. As you can see, everything tried to boot up and load up, so that's totally fine. There is, however, something that we still need to do in order to get our network up and running. But before we do anything with the network, I'll show you guys the Wi-Fi stuff at the very end. We're just going to go ahead and take a peek inside of BleemSync and take a look at the folder support now, as well as the game manager. So I'm just going to go ahead and boot up BleemSync right now. Perfect. So as you can see, all my games are here. But what we're going to want to do is we're just going to scroll over to the left, and this I find absolutely hilarious. But if you take a peek at the icon here, the guys didn't have as I mentioned, they're looking for a graphic designer. They didn't have one, so they just made it themselves. And when I saw this, I just laughed. But good work, guys. I appreciate that. We've got our game manager right here, and then we've also got our folder menu. So the game manager itself, if we go ahead and press X on the game manager, what this allows us to do is to edit information about any specific title. You can go ahead and do that right within here, and it's pretty neat. You just press X and it pulls up an on-screen keyboard, and you're pretty much good to go. So that in itself is fantastic. Press start to save and you're good. We're going to go ahead and back on out of here. This is the section as well that you're going to use to delete a game. So if, for example, you put Rayman 2 The Great Escape on there, you never played it, you thought, hey, maybe I'll give it a shot, you try it, you realize, I don't like this game, it doesn't flow with me, it's not something I'm ever going to play again, you don't have to take your USB out and throw it into your computer. You can go ahead and press the triangle button right from here. It'll delete the game, remove it from your USB, and you're pretty well good to go on to the next item. So that in itself is the game manager. It seems very basic, but it's very handy. It's definitely useful, and it's awesome to see that it's been implemented. We're going to go ahead and back on out of here. It's going to take us right on back to the main menu, and then of course the big one here is the folder menu. So this is every time I see this icon, it makes me smile. What we need to do is we need to go ahead and press the X button on the play option here. And as you can see now, we are right within the folder select option. All of your information is right along the bottom. L1 is to edit a folder, R1 is to create a folder. Left and right buttons are going to swap between the folders. If, let's say you've got 10 folders, you can filter through them between pressing the left D-pad, right D-pad. X is going to be to open a folder, and triangle is going to be to delete a folder. If you created a folder you don't like, you can get rid of it. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we are going to create a folder. So I'm going to go ahead and press R1, and then I'm going to name this folder. What I need to do is I need to go ahead and delete all of this text here, and I'm going to just name this folder Crash. And the reason I'm going to name it Crash is because what I intend to do for this demo here is I'm going to just load up Crash Bandicoot games in this folder. So I'm going to go ahead and press start to save it. Then we've got to change the folder icon. So this is the stock folder icon that I had mentioned. If we press X on it, now we can see all the ones that I've added in there. So as you can see, I've got a Metal Gear Solid one, I've got Rayman, I've got Ryu, I've got a PS1, another PS1 folder, and then of course I've got that Crash Bandicoot folder. So I'm going to go ahead and select this. This now becomes the icon for the folder. And then in terms of adding games to it, as you can see, I've got a games and then :0 and then the option to change the games. That's what we want to do. So we want to hit change games, and Before we go ahead and take a look, what you're going to notice right away is these are only the games that we loaded on the PlayStation Classic externally through our USB. If you want to toggle USB or the stock games in it, you just have to hit the select button. So if you hit select, it'll pull up all the internal games, and you can see they're all there, all 20 of them. And if you want to use just added games that you loaded up yourself, USB games, you press select button again, and then now you can select them. So right now I'm going to go ahead and shoot over to my Crash games. I'm going to enable Crash by pressing X, Crash 2, Crash 3, Crash Team Racing, and I think that's all I have on here. I didn't have Crash Bash on here. No, I'm pretty sure that's it for that. So right now I've got those 4 games enabled. I'm going to go ahead and press Start, which will kick me over to the right-hand side of the screen where it says Save. I'm going to hit X on Save, and then I'm going to go down below and hit Save again. Once I hit X, it's going to save it. And now this is a folder. We can create another folder, or we can go right into this folder. If you wanted to create another folder, you just press R1, which we'll do in a second. But what we're going to do is we're going to open up this folder so I can show you guys what that looks like. So I pressed X on my controller, and what it did is it opened up that folder. And as you can see, obviously any of the ports are still going to be there. So Half-Life, if you've installed it, will be visible. Your game manager will still be there. Your folder manager will be there. Your boot menu access will be there. Your RetroArch access will be there. And if you install Drastic, that will be there as well. But then the only other games that'll be displayed are going to be your Crash games. So that's that. If you wanted to get back out of here, what you have to do is you've got to navigate over to your folder menu. You're going to press A on the folders. And then if you actually want to go back to the stock build with everything there, what you have to do is press the circle button here. It's going to ask you if you're sure you want to quit without selecting a folder. And the answer to that is yes. So once I press yes, it's going to kick me right on back to my main screen with all of my games loaded up here. So as I mentioned, access to folders is only through this folder menu. In the future, they are going to have launchers right on the main screen here. So over here, you'll have access to, say, the Crash Bandicoot folder or whatever folder you've created. It'll actually be right within the carousel. But for right now, in order to access your folders, they're all going to be within this folder menu. So that's not super amazing in the sense of everything all being compiled and ready for us to go, but we've actually got the folder support, and this is a huge leap forward. It'll be a lot easier for them to tweak things and improve on them as we go forward. So definitely happy to see the folder support here. And that's pretty much all there is to show you guys within the BleemSync side of things. So what I'm going to go ahead and do now is I'm going to kick ourselves back out to our boot menu. And now that we're on our boot menu, there's something important that we have to do in order to get our Wi-Fi configured. So we've set up our configuration with our username or our network and our password. Very good, and that's really important, otherwise you wouldn't be able to connect in. But what we need to do is we need to press the L1 settings button from the boot menu. And then we need to scroll down to where it says enable_networking. So as you can see, it is set to false. We need to go ahead and hit the right D-pad button, which will change it to true. So what we need to do after that is scroll all the way down to the bottom, and we need to hit save. When we hit save, it's going to reboot our console. That is completely normal. I'm going to go ahead and do that, let the console reboot, and then I'm going to show you guys something that you should notice upon the next time that your console starts up. So again, it's going to ask if I'm sure that I want to overwrite the old settings. The console will shut down after saving. The answer to that is yes. We're going to do that, and we're going to let it shut down and turn back on. All right, so here we are. What we're going to notice on the top of the screen, it's going to start talking about setting up a network. So that'll take about 2 or 3 seconds to work. And once you see that there, that's going to indicate that you are connecting to the network and that the network feature is working properly. Now, of course, if you put in the incorrect Wi-Fi credentials, you won't know that until you actually load up RetroArch and try to connect into the main databases. But we're going to go ahead and do that now. So what we're going to go ahead and do is press X on RetroArch, and here we are. So all we need to do, we are currently running, as you can see in the bottom left-hand corner, RetroArch 1.7.7, and if we scroll down, you can see I've got a bunch of playlists here. Some have artwork and others do not have artwork. So what we're going to do is we're going to try a few things to see if we can get them to work properly. First thing, we're going to go into our main menu. We're going to go into our online updater. And then we're going to go into our core updater. If this is going to work correctly, then what we're going to get is a list of cores. If you are not connected to the network properly, you're just going to get an error on the bottom of the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and hit X and hope for the best now. As you guys saw in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, it's a downloading index, which means that it was connected and it was able to connect. As you can see, all these cores are here. They would not be visible if we weren't connected to the internet right now. So what I don't need to do anything with the cores. This is just an easy way to test whether or not it is up and running. I'm going to go ahead and press back. So we're going to go into the playlist thumbnails updater. And what we're going to do is we're going to select a console that I think I should be able to scrape. Things like arcade are not easy to scrape. There's a few CD-based consoles that are not easy to scrape, so this isn't the best way to give you guys a preview of that. But what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to get the Dreamcast to scrape. I only have one game on there. It's Crazy Taxi. I'm hoping that it should be able to scrape it, so I'm going to go ahead and hit X on that to scrape. And it's going to look for Crazy Taxi along the bottom. I get the green check mark. I'm hoping that means we're good. I'm going to go back. We're going to go into our playlists. We're going to scroll on down until we see Dreamcast. So there's our Crazy Taxi. We're going to press the right arrow over to it. And as you can see, I do have the artwork there. So it was able to scrape that artwork. And that'll work for pretty much anything. So if you want to create your playlist, you can go ahead and do that. You no longer have to go through this tedious work of downloading thumbnails and putting it onto your USB drive and downloading 3 gigs worth of images for 40 games that you loaded up. What this option will allow you to do is you can create your playlist. If you only have 50 games, you can go into this online scraper, which is over your main menu, online updater, and then your playlist thumbnails updater. If you click on that, it will only scrape and it'll only get the images for the games you have loaded up, which will save a ton of space. So I know that when I loaded up all the artwork for my SNES games and NES games, and I ended up loading up everything from the Japanese covers to the North American covers, the European covers, all of the different covers are loaded up, and that's not necessary. So this will actually save not only a lot of space, but a lot of time. So definitely love to see that this is up and running. The other big thing is things like Half-Life. You can now play games online multiplayer. Half-Life should work. Now, of course, I'm not going to go ahead and demo that in this video. You guys can go ahead and fuss with that and play around with it. But that's pretty much it, guys. This is BleemSync 1.2. That's all the features. Here's all the information. Hopefully you guys get this thing up and running nice and quickly. If you have any questions at all, make sure to leave a comment in the comment section below. Make sure to join the Mod My Classic Discord. Those guys in there, they work hard and they are there. They don't get paid for it. They're doing it out of goodwill and just out of pure passion. So if you guys need any help, they're there to help. I'm also in the Discord, so you guys can tag me if you guys need something. But thank you so very much for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, leave a comment in the comment section below, and I will talk to you guys again real soon.